Today we have another block made from tri-rec units or triangle and square units. This one I called tri-rec steps. It's 12-inch finished, and this is sort of a 3D. It looks like steps. So that's what intrigued me about this block. This is a 4x4 grid, so for a 12-inch finished block, each section in the grid finishes at 3 inches. So we have a 3-inch finished triangle and square or tri-rec unit. I'm giving you fabric requirements for using the tri-rec ruler here and here. And for the ACCUQUILT, here are the dies you can use. And as far as fabric goes for the ACCUQUILT, you'll need to have a little bit more than the fabric listed on here. Just measure your die and you'll be able to see what you need. Patch A is the triangle part, and again it's a 3-inch finished triangle and square. And we'll need 16 patches of the main fabric. You'll cut one piece at 3.5 inches times the width of fabric. And I had some left and I'll show you in just a minute. And patch B and B reversed are the rectangle part of the ruler, the tri-rec ruler. We're going to cut one at 3.5 inches times 22 inches for each fabric. That is for the black fabric and the white fabric. For these, normally when we're doing tri-rec units, you place the fabric for these right sides together because you need mirror images. But we're using one fabric for one side and another fabric for another. For the B patch, you'll place the fabric right side up and cut all of your pieces right side up. For the BR, the B reversed fabric, which is the dark fabric, you'll place all your fabrics right sides down and cut all your patches that way. Then here is how we're going to piece this unit. First we'll make all of the 16 triangle and squares. Then we're going to sew them together in pairs and sew the pairs together in rows. So you'll see that as we go along. All the units will be exactly the same. So we have the same 3 fabrics for all of 16 units. Here is for the triangles and here are the sides, and you see I've cut them already. Now when I cut my B and B reversed fabrics, I just cut a width of fabric strip. And I had this much left over. This is probably about 22 inches left over of the B patch, and then the same amount of the B reversed patch. And I had about this much, which is about 10 inches, if you measure from here to here, of the A patch. I just cut strips and times the width of fabric and cut those. If you want to know how to cut and piece the triangle and square unit using the tri-rec ruler and the ACCUQUILT dies, stay tuned for tutorials in the next segments. If you're not interested in that, just jump ahead to where we put together the block. But in the meantime, I'm going to sew all of these units together. I'm using the tri-rec tool to do the triangles and square, or the tri-rec units. We want a 3-inch finished tri-rec unit. So we cut our strips 3.5 inches for the triangles and the rectangles. And we're going to use the 3.5-inch mark on the ruler. Now I need to have 8 of these units, so I need 8 triangles. That's the first one, and I find it easier to turn the fabric this way. Now I have my 8 triangles. Next we're going to cut the rectangle part of the triangle and square. And I have 2 pieces of fabric here, wrong sides together, and we're going to be cutting one set at a time every time we make this cut. The first one I've already done. You lay it down here on the 3.5-inch mark, and then you cut it. On the edge of this, there's this little bitty nub right here you need to cut off. It looks insignificant, but it really helps you in the placement of your pieces. So cut that off, and now we have our first set. And this gets you your pieces like this. And then your triangle is sewn this way. On this one, I'm going to turn this way as well. So I have my first set cut. Now I need 7 more sets. To piece the Tri-Rex unit, you turn the piece over like this, and that little notch you cut out, you're going to line up with this edge of the triangle. So you have your notch lining up that edge, and then you have your side lining up with this edge. And we're going to start our stitching here and stitch a 1/4 inch all the way down. When you stitch it, your stitching should start right at this point here, and this should be a 1/4 inch here. So we've stitched all the way down to the bottom, and then when we open it up and press the seam open, it will look like this. This nub up here you have to cut off because it just gets in the way. And down here, if you'll notice down here, there's also a nub here that you can cut off. And this little angle for the rectangle fabric is sort of cut off a little bit. And that's just fine. It'll work out just fine. Now we take our other side, which is this, and we do basically the same thing. We're going to match down here, match the where you cut off the little blunt edge right here along this line, and then match the long side here. And we'll start stitching here. If you can see where this V is, right at that point should be your 1/4 inch, and you start there and stitch a 1/4 inch all the way down, and you should come off right here at this where this blunt edge was cut off. Here are 2 of them finished. This is what it looks like before the nubs are cut off. So you have a nub down here, and then the last one up here. So you trim those off, and here's what it looks like trimmed off. These little curved here, sort of curved edges here, are just fine. It doesn't matter. It'll be taken up in the seam allowance. It's just how it comes out. And then those are finished. So go ahead and make all 8 of those. This demo, I'm going to show you how to cut and piece the triangle and square unit using the ACCUQUILT. Here are the pieces you use. I'm using a die. There's 1 die for the triangle and 1 die for the rectangle parts. ACCUQUILT calls this unit a triangle and square. This is the triangle, and these are the sides that make the square. And you have 2 pieces. You have mirror images for your sides, and your triangle is just a triangle. These dies are from the cube. These finish at 3.5 inches. But there's a set for every cube, and there are also sets you can buy that have all these dies on 1 strip. And I think they finish at either 3 inches or 4 inches. There's a link in the description of the video to show you all your dies you can make the triangle and square with ACCUQUILT. My dies, I always outline my blades. I add a 1/4 inch to each side, and then I measure it. So here I've measured, and it's 4 inches. So this tells me I need to cut my fabric at 4 inches, and if I only want 1, I'll have a 4-inch square that I put on here. If I want to cut multiple ones, I'll cut a 4-inch strip. I've also figured out how many pieces I get per strip, and this one I can get 17 of these shapes per strip, and I wrote that on there. And I did the same thing to the side parts. These will cut 2 at a time, but they are not mirror images of each other, and we'll get into that in just a second. And here I've measured again. This is 3.25, and this is 4 inches, and I get 10 of these. That means 10 of this per shape, which means 2 per cut. So to cut this, the The rectangle part, we need to have mirror images. If I put these on here, this is wrong side up. I had to flip it to get that shape. And this is right side up. So what you'll have to do is take your fabric, fold it either wrong sides together or right sides together. I just have these wrong sides together. And then put your fabric over the two dies. And this will give you two sets. It will give you two left sides and two right sides. And they'll be the same. So that's what you have to do with these. The triangle, it doesn't matter how you put it on the die because it's symmetrical and it won't matter left or right. Here's one that I've cut. And it's like this, and it came out of this. So I wanted to show you how I cut these. I'll lay this on here first, and I'll cut one, then take this off. And usually I cut this part off here because I don't want it to get in the way. Now I have my angle here, so I can flip it this way. And then you get better use of your fabric. So make your cut here, and then cut off these little pieces, and then flip it, and just continue cutting as many as you need. So for one unit, you need one triangle and one pair of mirror image sides. Now let's see how we're going to piece these together. If I'm piecing a lot of these units, I will chain piece one side first. So if I'm doing 8, 10, whatever, I'll do all of this side first, press them, and then add the last side next. The dies have cut off all the points here. This gives you a way to match up for your piecing. So we'll take this first one and flip it over. I'm matching this cut here and this edge. I usually start with this one because it matches better. This is at the tip of the triangle. So let's match this here and then match however it ends up here. Then I'll start stitching at 1/4 of an inch and then finish stitching 1/4 of an inch down here. Now I wanted to zoom way in so you can see. This is the bottom part, the part that I matched first, and you can see the stitching comes out almost right on that point. And up here, it doesn't really match any point here, so just be sure you have 1/4 of an inch when you start stitching. Now I'll press it open. This is pressed open. This is the bottom part of the triangle, and you see this white part or the side part comes out just a little bit, but that's okay. And then the top part comes out. They meet together at the edge. And that's what you want. Now we're going to flip this over. This is how the piece goes. So we'll flip this over. Now you're going to match the top part of the triangle with this part right here. So match that there. Match the straight edge here and the edges here. Stitch up here, start here with your 1/4 of an inch. Going back one step, each time you match your side pieces to your triangle, do the matching at the tip of the triangle. Before we had the tip facing this way and we started our matching down here. Now we have our tip facing this way and we started our matching up here. And here's what it looks like. This is even across the top here, and that point is right at your 1/4 of an inch. And then down here, you're off a little bit with your 1/4 of an inch, but that's okay because we did the same thing over here. So now we will press the seams open. And here is your finished triangle and square unit. You see from the tip of this point to the edge is about 1/4 of an inch. And it's straight across the edge, nothing to cut off here. And then down here, you'll see these little bitty pieces kind of come out a little bit. I would trim those off because they might get in the way when you're stitching. There's a little bit peeking over here too. And you'll see that this white part or the side part comes out. It looks like maybe 1/8 of an inch comes out on the side. But don't worry about that. It will be taken up in the seam allowance when you sew this unit to another piece. And that's how you stitch the triangle and square with the ACCUQUILT. My 16 triangle and square units are finished now, and I've divided them into 2 stacks of 8 each. One stack, we're going to sew them together like this. So we'll have 4 like this. The other stack, we're going to sew them together like this. And we'll have 4 like this. Then press your seams open. Now we have our 2 sets made. We're going to take one set at a time and sew these 2 together like this and make 2 like that. And this will be row 1 and this will be row 3. Then take this other one, sew them together like this, and this will be row 2 and row 4. Now sew each of the 4 rows and press your seams open. The next step is to sew the rows together, and we'll alternate them. Just follow the diagram. And sew all the rows together and the block will be finished. Thanks for watching.